Awesome. Well, the time is 12:02. So without further ado, we are going to just jump right into it. Again, thank everyone for joining us for today's webinar, From First Touch to Fully Onboarded, how AI and HubSpot are rewiring onboarding at SAX. I'm super excited to bring this information to you. But aside from the information, we do have some marvelous guests today. We have our wonderful speakers, Leon Grassi and Heather Bacure. Look at those mugs. Beautiful people, beautiful people. Very excited for what they're going to be sharing with you today. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Leon.
I really got to stop catfishing people, Heather, with that picture because I feel like that was a couple of years ago, and I really should update. There's a lot more grays than there were in that picture. So, to echo Imani's sentiment, welcome everyone. I am in the lovely Marriott Marquis in New York City right now. I had an unplanned presentation I had to give in the city this morning, so I apologize for any background noise. Hopefully, it's relatively clear. But I do want to thank everybody for joining us and for taking part on what I hope will be an informative session as we sort of tell the story of how we at SAX ultimately made this migration leveraging HubSpot and talking about something that I'm sure no one's heard anything about these days, which is AI, right? No one's heard anything about AI. But we'll talk a little bit about how we used AI and automation to ultimately assist in building a more automated process for us when it comes to leveraging our CRM system and automating and onboarding new clients. And thankfully, couldn't have done it without the team over at Molestreet. So, having said that, I think we're going to start off with Imani's going to jump the slide for a second. We're going to start off with a brief survey, some poll questions because there are some things that they just launched. So please feel free to engage with those poll questions. We want to get some responses back from you guys just to see where people ultimately stand. Oh wow, look at that! Overwhelmingly, we are HubSpot users, which is lovely. I see a few that are coming up under none and or other at this point. So appreciate that data. That's very helpful for us as we guide our conversation here. I believe we have two poll questions. So we got 76% participation in this one. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Looks like overwhelmingly HubSpot. And here's poll question 2. How would you describe your team's current use of AI in the workplace? If you say we're not using AI, I'm very disappointed in you. Everyone should be using it.
Don't skew the poll, Leon.
I promise. I'm
Please
definitely
be
leading.
honest. It's okay. It's a safe space if you're not using
I'm
AI
leading
work
witnesses here,
yourself.
Heather. Yeah, fair statement. So we're seeing about 89% saying we use AI tools daily across multiple teams. 10% saying we're experimenting. Some people use it, most don't. Appreciate that. Cool. Very large majority of those that responded are using. Cool. So I think we can roll through then. I appreciate you guys engaging. I'm pretty sure there were only 2 questions, right, Imani? If I'm not mistaken. So let's roll on to the next slide and sort of give you a summary of kind of what we wanted to discuss today. So to be clear, and I wear a couple of hats at the firm, and as it pertains to how we engage with clients. So I want to sort of explain that right off the bat. I am the firm's chief marketing officer. I'm a partner of the firm, but I'm the firm's chief marketing officer, as well as the chief revenue officer, and responsible for our technology consulting practice, which SAX Technology Advisors. So my approach to a lot of these conversations has both the marketing and business development skew, as well as a lens of being a technologist. And while I'm not an engineer or a developer, I've been in IT for half of my 24-year career, so I can speak surprisingly technical. We're going to go through sort of how this onboarding system started, where we got to, and talk about processes and what's really important for us on the SAX technology side, which is what we apply to all the solutions that we ultimately build here. Is we work on 3 things, right? It's people, process, and technology. Technology is almost the afterthought. I know that sounds crazy, right? As we talk about AI and these systems and stuff like that, but really we have to look at the people first and determine whether or not the people are properly trained and educated as to what their objectives are. We look at then the process to make sure that we're aligned on what the process should be to ultimately achieve success in what we're trying to achieve. And then we can actually look at the technology and sort of reverse engineer the technology to make the process and the people ultimately successful. So that's what we're going to talk about. So in order of these bullets here, why onboarding is a system problem, not a process problem. We're going to talk about how SAX evaluated, where we found, how we found HubSpot to be the right solution, where the automation actually pays off across the journey. We'll talk a little bit about time to first billable hour reduction and what that looked like, the integration patterns that work. So, what's native to HubSpot, what had to be customized and required some middleware to make it work. And then we'll sort of discuss a practical start small, prove ROI, repeat framework, which is really the right way to approach all this. So that's what we'll get into. I think, Heather, Imani, you can jump to the next slide. Appreciate that. Sorry, I'm not driving here, guys. Like I said, I'm in the city today. So, okay, so let's start with the why HubSpot. So I'm not going to talk about SAX as an accounting firm. I'm going to talk about SAX as a professional services firm. It's been around for a really long time, right? That has old-fashioned processes, because it really doesn't matter what industry that you sit in. I've been a long-time HubSpot user since pre-IPO in my own life, in inventions of myself or iterations of myself prior to joining SAX, and used the tool in quite a few different industries and capacities. So there is a universal relevance, obviously, to the platform and the CRM itself. But where it starts to really make sense and where the story gets clear as far as how we use it at SAX, as a professional services firm, we don't really have salespeople, right? We don't have dedicated salespeople. And generally speaking, CRMs are marketed towards salespeople. It's a place where you can engage with your customers and log notes and keep a trail of all of the activity that can make it easier for you to engage in sales-related activities, right? To convert leads and to cultivate leads over a period of time to ultimately close them as final deals for whatever industry that you serve. The professional services industry does not have salespeople. We have partners who have a purview and are responsible for generating business for their organization. Same thing applies in a lot of other industries, right? The legal services space, professional services like insurance and wealth management, and even manufacturing and distribution to a certain extent, right? Doesn't have salespeople. So that was a challenge for us right off the bat. What I have always loved about HubSpot and what made HubSpot such a clear winner for us when I built this committee of resources at the firm to review CRMs was, I'm going to make a joke and I hope I don't offend Heather and she can laugh or chime in, but as a marketer, lifelong, HubSpot was built by marketers for marketers. It's a dumb tool. We're not exactly very smart when it comes to stuff like this, right? We need something that has very nice images and it's easy to use. And HubSpot did a really, really good job of connecting the marketing automation platform of what HubSpot does to the CRM and make it easy enough that marketers like Heather and myself can actually use the tool effectively and efficiently. I'm not saying that the other tools aren't as good, but I've used quite a few before, and I won't mention names. I'll say it rhymes with male's torse. It's a ridiculous word I just made up, is a little bit more complex and a little bit more techy and requires a lot more engineering time to make the tool work within an organization, whereas HubSpot was a lot more set it and forget it for us. So that's why we chose the tool. And ultimately, we were looking for a solution to help to make our data more accurate, right? As a professional services firm, the firm that doesn't have a lot of salespeople, forecasting and pipeline was always largely inaccurate. It's really hard to get good data, right? Because we all know how difficult it is to maintain records, but to maintain records when you have 60, 70, 80 now partners at the firm for us, who are all engaging with different business development activities, it's really hard to keep accuracy across all of those people and all of those data sources. So what you see before was we had a very slow manual data entry process, a lot of disconnected tools and siloed information, and really no clear view of how a deal went from its inception to its close, right? And ultimately, all that sort of in combination led to a real difficulty in measuring a return on the investment. And those of us who are in marketing know marketing is hard enough to justify an ROI, especially when you're spending all this money on process and events and all these other things that are happening to try to drive sales. So what we ultimately got to, okay, and I'm way oversimplifying here, but I want to, for the sake of time, keep things on the right track to make sure Heather and her team have enough time to go through their stuff. is we tried to create a streamlined and automated workflow process, leveraging the tool, which in this case was HubSpot. So what we did was we deployed HubSpot at the firm. And over a period of time, we built out a series of automations, some native to the tool, some native to HubSpot. And it has quite a few capabilities when it comes to building workflows and automating processes, and then some leveraging a third-party application. A third-party application, which we lovingly call the bot, which we really should have given it a name, Heather, now that I think about it. But it is an AI-based tool, right, that writes data to and from HubSpot, and it writes it to otherwise disparate applications across our environment and infrastructure. And what that has created for us is a unified customer platform with better intelligence from front to back and real data-driven insights, right? So whereas before we started this process, I had probably a 20% confidence in the forecast data that we actually used at the firm. Today, I have a 95% confidence. I leave the 5% variable for human error, but the reality is we have a much greater hold, right, or understanding of how our data moves through the buy cycle. Right? So when an opportunity is created, to how that deal is ultimately cultivated, and then ultimately to how it's closed. I'm oversimplifying here, and I'm happy to talk in way more detail with people that want to learn more about what that process looks like. But ultimately, to boil it down to the simplistic terms, we have HubSpot, which represents our CRM and marketing automation platform, which what I love about HubSpot and many other automation platforms, but HubSpot specifically, is that it plays nice in the sandbox, right, with a lot of different tools, applications, other platforms. We, like many other organizations, have application sprawl, which is a major problem in the industry, right? And we have way too many places where data exists and resides. So this process and this tool gave us a way to start connecting those disparate dots, which candidly is one of the real value points, right, for artificial intelligence. AI in and of itself, there's the understanding of, oh, well, there's ChatGPT and there's Claude, and how do I get from there to actually having an impact on my business? This is a perfect representation. What AI is really good at is effectively connecting the dots between otherwise disparate applications. Anything that has an API, right, AI can communicate with and can write data from source to source. And that is ultimately what we created. Now, as you can imagine, this whole process was very difficult. And we couldn't have done it by ourselves. And this is a really nice tee up for the team at Molestreet. So in my quest to find a really solid working partner to help us to build out this process and sort of engineer what these workflows ultimately look like, I did a lot of research, as many people do, and was ultimately introduced to Molestreet. I have since, and this is now almost 5 years, Heather, right, that we've been working together between Molestreet and SAX. I have since gone on to advocate for Molestreet as an organization to several of our clients, to partners, to competitors, to folks in the industry who are looking for integration partners. Because if you can find a good integration partner in general for technology, but for CRM plays, including HubSpot, you hold them close to the vest, because they're far and few between. And I'm not saying that I'm not getting paid, right, Heather? Heather, I'm not getting any kickback on this. I'm saying it because I genuinely believe it. It is difficult, right, for in-house teams to architect solutions such as this. And I believe that Molestreet has been exceptional in helping us to achieve that. And I don't think we could have done it without them. So I don't think I have another slide. I wanted to tell the high level story. Imani can go to the next slide just to validate that. But I did want to tell sort of the high level story of how we got from point A to point B. And then I want to be able to kick it over to Heather for further validation on all of those points and sort of talk a little bit more about that. Is that fair?
Oh,
Miss, anything?
that's perfect. Thanks so much, Leon. And for what it's worth, it's been wonderful working with the SAX team.
Oh, you're just saying that.
On all sides. No, I really am not. I'm not getting paid either. Out of the genuine experience, it's really been great. And here's to 5 more years and beyond.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the native AI tools in HubSpot. Seems like most people we have on the call are already using HubSpot. Maybe others are considering it, but HubSpot is making a lot of strides in the AI space, as you'll have probably seen. And it's almost difficult to keep up with all of the things that they're doing. So I did want to give kind of an introduction to some of the key things that you can integrate right now. If you have HubSpot at home, you can try this at home, right? You can do all of these things. As long as you have the right subscriptions, which I'm guessing most of you already have an enterprise subscription. These are all already available for you. So And each of these is going to help you provide a better customer experience and speed up the time to onboarding like we've been talking about. So starting with AI lead scoring and intent scoring, and this is a really cool tool that will tell you exactly who your hand raisers are, who's ready to buy, because like Leon was saying, especially in professional services industries and other places where you don't have people who identify as a sales team, they're probably not going to be doing a ton of prospecting, right? So it's nice for you to be able to surface things to them and say, hey, these people are already interested in what we have to offer. And even if you do have a sales team, so we all know that sometimes they're they're busy with their own things as well. So I'm going to show you exactly how that works.
Heather, you
And that
don't have to be nice. We're basically ADD by design salespeople, right? You can say it out loud. It's fine. It's squirrel, right? Whatever the next move is we're going to chase it. So well said.
and you already outed me as a marketer, so I have to be nice to the salespeople on the call, or they're just going to dismiss me. Yeah, so that's going to help you identify sales ready prospects. And I'll go into that in just a minute with some pictures to show you guys how that works. Um, HubSpot also does a great job of helping you prepare for calls. So once you already have a call booked with a prospect, it's going to help you prepare. And so you don't have to click to 7 different pages, open up the company website and start researching and everything. HubSpot can service that all for you along with the past interactions that that person has had with your company. Also recommended discussion topics, and there's some post-call recaps as well that the AI helps with. Many of you have probably heard a little bit about Prospecting Agent. This is, again, great to fill that gap when you don't have people, maybe you don't have a full business development team yet who's totally focused on prospecting. HubSpot has an agent that can fill that gap. So it will actually draft personalized outreach for you, and then it can help you prioritize target accounts as well. And then Data Agent is really useful in terms of enrichment. And then also you can create smart properties, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Basically, as long as your calls, emails, and meetings are in HubSpot, then Data Agent can use all of that information and actually write those things to your contacts so that you can see, oh, I have a next step for every contact that's had a meeting with us automatically added to their contact record, without me having to go in and type notes after a call. So super cool. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in, Imani.
Heather,
Perfect.
you're used to me interrupting, so I don't. Hopefully, I don't have to apologize because I interrupt you all the time. But if you don't mind, I will say this, guys, because again, putting my tech hat on for a second, I think sometimes we're a little defensive these days when we hear that companies have layered AI onto their existing platforms, and we're like, oh yeah, another one, right? I have to be honest, and again, neither of us are getting paid for this. The AI functionality within HubSpot is impressive, right? I sell AI solutions. We work with it every single day, and they did an exceptional job, candidly, right? Versus their competitive set of incorporating their AI platform. I think they've probably done a ton of research and development on this. This wasn't a quick decision on their part, but the tools that Heather's alluding to, and the toolkit is exceptional. Very, very impressive. So sorry, I'm just validating, Heather.
Thank you, Leah. Yeah, feel free to interrupt anytime. And this is honestly just a few of the things that are happening in the AI space with HubSpot. There's a lot more. There's an AEO tool that's really cool. So they are really doing a lot in this space, which is awesome to see. All right, so let's talk through some use cases. Um, Starting with the intent scoring and lead scoring that we talked about. I would love to hear if anyone wants to write in the chat who's currently using a lead scoring model in HubSpot or elsewhere. This is something that marketing teams often put together to assign specific scores to people who are engaging with marketing and sales. So, a certain score for visiting your contact us page, a certain score for clicking through your email, a certain score for attending your webinar. Wink, wink. So all of
Well
that
done.
is really good. What, Leon?
So well done. I see what you did there.
You saw. So all of that is really great if you already have a starting point, but if you don't and you're, coming to this call today and you're like, oh, I don't even know where to start with that. HubSpot's AI capabilities are going to help you a lot because you can actually go into the lead score tool in HubSpot and click help AI, use AI to help me come up with the lead score, and it will automatically come up with this for you. And then you can refine it as you go. And what that looks like, you can see in the screenshot on the right-hand side. This is, oh, thank you for doing the poll. That's awesome. I love it. On the right-hand side, we have, this is, by the way, this is like a financial services use case, just using different industries to show that this can apply to really anybody. It can help anyone out. So we have kind of different scores here to show for who's interested in a home loan versus an auto loan, and both of those are created by AI, and they dynamically update based on everything your marketing team's doing and everything your sales team is doing. So that's pretty cool. I love it. Yeah, so we're like 2080 is who's using a lead scoring tool. So I would definitely recommend those who aren't doing it to come into HubSpot and set that up if you already have HubSpot. And going back to bragging about HubSpot, in the CRM space, HubSpot has the best lead scoring capabilities by far. Again, it was built with marketers in mind and salespeople and service people as well. But it's definitely uh, really cool and helps, not only does it help the marketing team show how they've contributed to the pipeline, but it also helps the sales team be confident that the leads that we're receiving are actually good leads and not just whatever robot filled out the form, right? So that's very important to have. Alrighty, so I'm gonna keep going here to the next use case example we have. Perfect. So next I want to talk about pre-call prep. So once you have those leads coming in and you've scored them appropriately, um, how do you prepare for a meeting? Again, people are busy, Leon, this is Leon's like 17th speaking engagement of the day. So how is he going to have time to prepare for all of his calls with the people who are interested in SAX, right? And this is a great starting point for that instead of, trying to go into ChatGPT or whatever you use and having to paste transcripts and all of that. You can just go into HubSpot, and HubSpot already can reference all the information about about the contact and the company that you're meeting with. I actually saw a LinkedIn post the other day of a mom who said that she was at the pediatrician's office with her child who was sick again. And she had a meeting like 15 minutes later. She was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to prepare for this meeting? Like, it's been a crazy day. All of us with kids know, like why do they get sick all the time? They just do. And she was like, yeah, just pulled up HubSpot and meeting went great. So that was really affirming to see, people are using this and it's really helping them save time and hone in on like what their prospects really care about. So you can see HubSpot's tool for doing this is called Breeze Assistant. It's used for other things as well, but that's where you can find it if you're already using HubSpot. And then you can just type in, help me prepare for a meeting. And if your calendar is already connected to HubSpot, it can actually just check, oh, you have a meeting in an hour. Here's how you prepare. Or if you don't have it connected for one reason or another, you can just type in the name of the company and it will find it for you. And then here's an example of what it shows, who you're meeting
Such
with.
a great case, Heather, for accountants who are not salespeople, right? Or just non-salespeople in general. Again, going back to our use case, this tool really helps the accountants who aren't good at sales to really get a summary and prepare for meetings and calls. Now that's the caveat to all of this is right. That's all assuming that they are using the tool, right, to properly log data and notes and meetings, et cetera. And we still wrestle with that to a certain extent to this day, but we're gaining a lot of traction with really showing use cases of how these tools work successfully for the partners of the firm. And the more they leverage it, the easier it is for these tools to be, to help them drive efficiency.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Leon. That's a great call out. So that reminds me of, when you said, it's not a process problem, it's a systems
Yep.
problem. I
Yep.
agree. And also it's not a process problem, right?
Correct.
Because we still do need the processes of, people using the CRM and using it the way that it's intended for, and not just, stubbornly continuing to store their data elsewhere or, not create a deal until the last minute, those kinds of things. But that's something that I think SAX has done really well with equipping their team.
We're getting there. We're getting there. I have a loaded question for you, Heather, that I hope is beneficial to the whole audience. I'm playing MC here a little bit, but can you, and maybe it's less of a question, but more of an ask, can you speak to the data hygiene, cleanliness of data in HubSpot as we start to use these AI tools and connect HubSpot to other applications, and talk about how important it is to make sure that you're keeping accurate records within the platform?
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. So I'll use the age-old adage, garbage in, garbage out, which I'm sure everyone's heard before.
Never heard that before.
Never, what? It's novel. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Uh, so if you have dirty data in your CRM, AI tools, any AI tools that you use, any connectors that you build are going to be limited to the data that they can reference, right? So it is really important if you're kind of at a crux where you're determining, okay, we want to go all in with AI, like we don't have the tools that we need and we really want to build those. I would definitely recommend starting with a data cleanup. And that's something that we did for SAX a long time
Yep.
ago to help set them up for success, to make sure that, not only is HubSpot data where it needs to be, but their other systems, their other applications that Leon talked about, they have the data they need to thrive, to do staffing, to do billing, all of the extra things and the complex processes that they need to run to function as a firm. So I definitely would recommend that you want a good hard look at your data, make sure it's clean, make sure you're validating, what people are putting into your CRM, doing regular cleanup, so that AI can function optimally. Because otherwise, it could honestly make things worse. I have seen that go badly a few times, unfortunately. So, thanks for bringing that up, Leon. That's really important to keep in mind. Awesome. So let's go to our next example here. Imani, thank you. Perfect segue, actually. So now we're going to be talking about prospecting agent. So again, this tool is going to help you uh, have personalized outreach to your leads who are ready. So not only is it going to tell you, okay, here's a list of people who you should reach out to based on specific criteria that you're welcome to edit as needed. It's actually going to draft things for you. And I always have to say this caveat because you'd be surprised. You probably still want to read the email before you send it, just in case, just in case. That's true for every AI tool, because people are getting more concerned, I would say, about like what shows up in their inbox. So you want to make sure that it's personalized and that it's relevant to exactly what you're selling. But you can do that by setting up a selling profile in Prospecting Agent, and you can actually set up multiple profiles. So if you have different service lines that you offer, you can actually set up an agent for each of those. And then use the buyer intent criteria that we talked about earlier to decide who is ready to buy which product, and then basically enter them in Prospecting Agent, so that, again, going back to our example of salespeople who just don't have a lot of time on their hands because they're juggling a million things, this is crucial for them to be able to send personalized outreach, and then keep track of who next do they reach out to, instead of just being overwhelmed with a list of 500 people who they may or may not know. So I think that's really, really helpful.
Heather, if I can just add a little color on this one, I think many organizations are probably in a similar situation as I am, which is we have probably damn near, I don't know, Heather probably knows, about 60,000 contacts, give or take, within HubSpot. And we joke all the time that sometimes mining that database is even more valuable than some of the other sales efforts that we undertake. There are so many valuable COIs, centers of influence, potential referral sources, existing clients, past clients that are sitting in that database that far too often we just ignore and sort of don't pay attention to, because we're always looking for the, the next net new logo without necessarily looking back. We did a campaign a couple of years ago. We called it the Raise the Dead campaign. It's a terrible name, but like that's a like this tool can help you to achieve that. We use it, right, and we go through those 60,000 contacts and try to identify people that make sense for us to either re-engage with, or maybe we never engaged with them in the first place because it just sort of fell to the wayside. So I highly recommend it, and it's, again, we all fit into that category, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a great point, Leon. And I think a lot of people start with, like you said, oh, we need new logos. Like, we got this new CRM. We want to expand our new business, which is obviously a great place to start. But once you do see momentum and you're growing on the new business side, it's so critical to build up that cross-sell and upsell motion. And this is really helpful for doing that. You can set up different intent scoring for each of your products and different work streams, different automations, even automatic campaigns on the marketing side. So you don't even have to touch anything to send those emails, right? It's just keeping your customers front and center and trying to offer them, other products that you have that would help them. Awesome. Alrighty, I think we just have a couple more use cases to go through here. And by the way, maybe some of you are seeing these screenshots and you're like, oh, I would like to look a little bit deeper at these and, maybe open up your HubSpot on the side and see if you can set things up for yourself. I believe we will be able to share these afterwards as well if you all are interested. So that's definitely something that we're happy to provide you all as well. Okay, great. So next we have Data Agent. As a starting point, Data Agent offers enrichment for your contacts, so your people and your companies, your businesses that you have already in HubSpot. I always recommend that people turn this on. And the reason is that it's actually free. So for a while, some of you might remember, if you've been HubSpot users for a long time, there was a point in time where it cost for each enrichment, and HubSpot has removed that. So that's really exciting. You can have data from all of their enrichment providers for free in your system. So AI is going to automatically update all of your contacts, all of your companies that you add, and you can control those settings within the settings as well. But something that
being paid by HubSpot, it's about time they included that, Heather, because honestly, that was ridiculous, right? I mean, for what these tools, it is about time that they do that. See, told you guys.
I was like very diplomatic about it, but yeah. That one, the people have spoken, and we are very happy that that's now included. Yeah, and then there's also these really cool prompts that you can write. So kind of what I was mentioning earlier, these are called smart properties. So what you can do is you can actually create a property that's going to reference all of your meeting transcripts, your call transcripts, your emails that are already in HubSpot, and then it's going to write that information to your contacts. So you can see some examples in the screenshots here. Apologies, they're a little bit small. For example, like key suppliers and vendors. You can have a list of, everyone who's mentioned HubSpot, or everyone who's mentioned, your competitor could be listed here. We could also have like a new funding or investment to record that and target outreach based on that. Some things about objections, which are really helpful as you're moving along through the sales process. So you can see all of these different examples here, and you have full control over how you want to set those up in the way that best benefits your team. These specific things, so these smart properties, they do require HubSpot credits, which you can check your credit usage in your settings, but everyone has a certain number of HubSpot credits when they purchase HubSpot. So it's still a native feature, but it will cost credits. So just keep an eye on that so you don't go over your allotted amount there. Yeah, and then, I mentioned the next step property. I think that one's great because if I had $1 for every time I looked at someone's CRM and I was like, oh, no one's leaving next steps. Like open up a deal or an opportunity and it's like, what's going on here? Nobody knows because no one left the next step. It's really nice if you don't have to put that burden on your sales team so they can just have the call and then HubSpot's agent can populate that next step for you. Alrighty. Cool. And then I think this is the last use case that we have, and then we'll be able to jump into some questions from you all, which we're really excited about. So one more call out, and this is not so much directly part of the sales funnel, but HubSpot does have a really cool FAQ assistant that you can customize based on your own documentation for your company. So basically, it's like an internal assistant so that when you're onboarding new team members, they can just come here and ask questions directly in HubSpot, and it can reference all the documentation that you've provided. So it really increases onboarding within your organization so that you don't have to spend hours training people on your specific processes. So we have like some examples for professional services firms. We have, your firm specific processes, including like when you're supposed to move deals between stages, how conflict checks are handled, etc. So, but you can customize that for whichever industry you're in. So this is a really cool thing that I think people overlook sometimes because it's not like in the HubSpot navigation. It's a little bit like you have to set it up a little bit, and then once you have it available, you can just share it with your wider team, and everyone can use it because, like Leanna and I have been talking about, it's really, really important for everyone to be on the same page about where to put what data and how to get the most out of HubSpot or your CRM. Okay, so those are some of the native AI capabilities within HubSpot. Like Leon said before, when we're talking about building custom connections with other tools, that often requires an extra build, like Leon was talking about. There are some tools that you can connect with HubSpot using the HubSpot app marketplace, which some of you might be familiar with. So I always recommend that as a starting point. So if you have a tool that you want to connect to HubSpot that we haven't mentioned here today, I would start by just typing the name of that into the HubSpot app marketplace, see if they have an app. If HubSpot has built it, usually it's free. Some of them are there for a nominal cost, but please check the reviews because some of them are not sophisticated enough and could actually do some damage. So make sure to be thorough with the reviews. And if you come up dry after that, then I would definitely recommend reaching out to a partner, someone like SAX Tech, someone like Molestreet, who can help you set up a connector in a way that works best for your company. And I even have some clients who, let's say they use something like Dynamics and then their marketing team is in HubSpot for whatever reason. There is an out-of-the-box connector for those that they can find in the HubSpot marketplace, but they decided, this doesn't work well for our company. We actually need a custom build instead, and to use AI in a way that makes our data better. So you don't have to be limited to those as well, if you are ready and interested in doing something a little bit more custom. Do you have anything to add to that, Leon?
No, it's very well said, Heather. And you sort of alluded to it. It's a little bit of a commercial, but if you guys aren't able to find anything from within the marketplace or within the ecosystem that HubSpot provides, engage us. We're happy to help. The platform that we have built and we are improving upon, consistently is ultimately to help connect all those different applications. So that our dream here is to be able to. And this is what we're doing today and what we're improving every day that passes is you create an opportunity in HubSpot, you close that deal, and then that deal writes to your time and billing system, and then writes to all of the independent platforms that that exist, and then closes that loop and validates that the process is complete, so that there's no manual intervention anymore. All that happens, my favorite term, automatically, right, in the background. So that's the goal, that's the dream, and it's entirely possible because one, we're doing it, and two, by leveraging the right teams to accomplish it, it's a lot more efficient than having it go through the way it used to go. So
Yes, absolutely. Great. So we did want to share, Molestreet is offering a free consultation to you all if you're interested. So we do this a lot. SAX is not our only firm who's our client, and we do have clients in every industry. So even if you're on the call and you're like, oh, they haven't talked about my industry, trust me, we have a client in your industry. We're across the board. We're really happy to just spend some time with you, look at your processes, see how we can optimize, kind of an audit of your current onboarding that you're doing or any other process that you want to automate and use AI for, so that we can help you honestly save money, save time, and
What's about?
improve.
That's what it's about. And Heather, double down on that. Even if you're not a HubSpot, and we on the onset, we saw some folks were not on HubSpot today or were sort of in between or on another platform. That doesn't mean you shouldn't reach out to Molestreet to have a conversation, right? Not because they're going to try to sell you HubSpot, right? But because there are, potentially solutions that exist that or recommendations that they can make that will potentially enlighten you guys to a better alternative. So definitely re-engage if necessary.
Yeah, thanks, Leon, for saying that. Yeah, exactly. We pride ourselves on being very unbiased. We're technically a HubSpot partner, but we're going to make the best recommendation for your company at the end of the day. So please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So QR code is here. I believe the link will also be in our follow-up email. So if you missed this,
That
that's
is
it.
correct. Yeah, and Imani put this in the chat because the question did come up, but this session will be recorded and will be shared with all attendees and registrants within 72 hours of the presentation. So stay tuned; it'll come to you shortly.
Awesome.
So,
All right.
any questions, Imani? Did we get any questions from the group while we were chatting, or do you have
Let's
any?
see. It looks like we do have some questions that came through. I actually feel like this one, you might both be able to answer this one. Our first question is, how long did it take SAX to go from kicking off onboarding to being fully implemented and running on HubSpot?
Forever. It's still going on. No, I'm kidding. There, and I mean, part of that joke is actually true. This is an iterative process. So while the initial onboarding, right, and integration that ultimately happened was probably around the 3 to 6 month time frame by the time I twist and turned, to really get it to a place where it was yielding positive results and benefits. But having said that, it is, Heather can attest, it is not a one and done. It's not a set it and forget it, right? We are consistently trying to improve. As an organization, SAX is very much in M&A mode right now. So we're acquiring other small firms and organizations and bolting them on, and all of those changes ultimately lead to adjustments that need to happen with the process so the Molestreet team, we are engaged. So having said that, right, this is a good summary on our structure. We started out initially as an engagement to kind of get us up and running, and that ultimately resulted in we have Molestreet on retainer to help us as we make these changes and as this iterative process continues to move forward. So yeah, 3 to 6 months initially, but it really is an ongoing process, and we can't do it alone. So did I miss anything in that, Heather?
No, I think you're right on track there. And honestly, you know, having that ongoing process, maybe it sounds like, oh, we're always going to need to be working on this, and such a bummer. We thought we could just finish it in 6 months and it would just work without us. And that's only going to work if you're happy with, with where you're at. If you want to grow, if you want to improve, if you want to, get the most out of new features that are being released, grow with AI's growth. If you want to expand with your customers, give them a better experience. I think it is really important to think more long term. How can we continue optimizing as we grow? Obviously, SAX is a huge company now. They're growing, adding more employees as they go. But also just like going up market and having more businesses that really require a white glove experience for their customer journey. So I think that's right on point.
Well said.
Thank you all for that. Okay, we've got just two more questions. Feel free to keep dropping the questions in. So our second question, and Heather, you kind of touched on this when you spoke to the fact that Mole Street works with a multitude of industries, but just to reiterate it, our question is who or what industry benefits most from this kind of AI-powered onboarding setup?
I'll start, Heather, and then you can jump in. I really believe it's any industry that closes deals, right? That has clients and then writes that client data to multiple sources, time, billing, financial platforms, et cetera. Anytime you're talking about multiple applications, right, and a deal or a client coming in, that's where the tool starts to make sense. So, definitely professional services, as I alluded to. Sales. For a period of my career, I was a leader of a small digital marketing agency, and that's when I first became a HubSpot guy. We had clients in blue collar service, we had clients in professional service, we had clients in retail banking. Anytime there's some sort of a customer engagement process that requires data to be written to multiple sources, I think that's you fit the bill. I think personally, unless Heather disagrees.
No, I totally agree. And honestly, even if you don't have a traditional sales model, HubSpot can still work for you. It's very customizable. I think it blends really well, the ease of use that Leon was talking about, but also being able to customize for your business. So, we have some clients who are in spaces where they're not really selling things, but they are, for example, nonprofits, working with donors, or, in the education space, working with students. Those kinds of more unique use cases are really fun for our team because we get to take, what we've seen work for other industries and apply it to your industry. And I would say that's across the board. So I've seen HubSpot work for pretty much every industry. I can't think of one off the top of my head that it wouldn't work for. Maybe if you're like teeny tiny, mom and pop shop and it's just you, then I would honestly say you could probably use the free version of HubSpot and do just fine. But once you start growing, it's definitely a good spot
Yeah.
to be to invest in a CRM.
Perfect. And all right, we do just have one last question. And I feel like everyone can probably relate to this one a little bit. This says, my team is currently using spreadsheets to manage our client info. What would you say is the biggest difference once you move to something like HubSpot?
You'll be able to sleep better, that's for sure. I mean, the obvious. I mean, you're basically referencing SAX, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. We're now a 530 employee, $150 million organization, and and in our growth and throughout our journey, at one point we were still managing client information on spreadsheets, and it's terrifying. It's accuracy, it's security. God forbid that data gets deleted. So there's a huge opportunity for you to leverage a secure cloud-based application, which is HubSpot, which is enterprise ready, but also scales to the small business, as Heather alluded to improve the accuracy of your data and just not be concerned that if for some reason that spreadsheet ever got corrupted, that you wouldn't lose every single bit of your contact data for all your clients. It's a process thing, right? Heather mentioned this as well. There is a tremendous efficiency to be gained here if you follow sort of HubSpot and a process, right, that ultimately makes all this possible. The AI stuff is just gravy. Using the tool is the first step, and then the AI stuff is really, as you scale, it helps to make that data proliferate to other parts of your environment and to maintain better accuracy for that data.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is like, first of all, I want to say you're not alone. I feel like this is group therapy, but you're
Yeah.
not alone if you're using spreadsheets.
Yeah.
It's okay, safe space. We've had, lots of people come to us with that and say, things are okay. We're getting our data in spreadsheets. It's there. We get a report every month or something, and we can see, and the data's, it's kind of there. We don't have much visibility into things we've lost. We can kind of get an idea for what we've won. When we're wrapping up financials for the end of the year, we have to chase people down and and get their actual numbers, that kind of thing. But it's functioning. And then kind of on the other side of it, once they have switched to a CRM and they have increased adoption with their people and stuff, it's just like, wow, we can't remember how we functioned without this, right? And I think, part of it, like if from the leadership perspective, you want accurate reporting, right? You want to be able to see what you've actually sold, and see the ROI in different areas, which is really hard to do if you have everything in a spreadsheet and you're just relying on either like everyone updating one spreadsheet or everyone emailing one person who's updating that spreadsheet, months later. But also it just kind of puts you at a disadvantage, I would say, in knowing who's interested in what you're selling. So
Yep.
if you're just keeping track of, whoever you met on your last golf trip, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's how we make real connections, right? And you're not thinking about people who are actively visiting your website, coming to your events and want to talk to someone. And those are just getting lost because there's no follow-up after they, submit a form on your website or whatever. That can be really costly, I would say. So there are lots of reasons I could give to switch to CRM, but I would say as a starting point, if you're starting to think about that and you're just like, okay, I need to start getting buy-in within our organization, on the leadership team, et cetera. Just don't be content with where you're at. You can grow, and we've seen a lot of companies become really profitable once they make this switch.
Heather, I should have expected you to give a much better response than I did. Well, very well said. You're very good at that, and you're right. And I think that the opportunity, the upside, and the opportunity that you're missing is even greater, right, than improving the process. So that's very, very well said. So, Imani, any other questions from the crew?
Those are all of our questions. Thank you all for submitting those. The conversation can definitely continue after this. If you want to stay connected with Leon and Heather, we've got all of their LinkedIn details on screen. I'm also going to go ahead and drop those links into the chat just to make it easy for anyone who is tuning in mobily. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you to our speakers, Leon and Heather, once again, for such an informative webinar. As previously mentioned, this webinar will be available within 72 hours. And for this particular webinar, we'll also be attaching the presentation since we have a lot of screenshots and things of that nature. But again, as Leon mentioned, we are here to help. So feel free to either book that consultation with Molestreet just to get that one-on-one type of help and guidance, or reach out to Leon or Heather on LinkedIn.
Appreciate that very much. Thank you, Imani, for your support and setting this up. Thank you, attendees, and we really appreciate it, guys.